Regulations to govern mining activities in Ghana following recent explosion at Apiate.
And Nigeria sets up emergency response center to deal with outbreaks of the deadly Lassa fever in some parts of the country.
Good evening. Good to have you join us. This is News Hour Live on GBC News and on GTV. We're also streaming live on Facebook and on YouTube at Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. My name is Samuel Akwoti.
Mine is Clara Nano. Good evening.
Now the news in detail. The Ghana Health Service on Thursday began administering COVID-19 booster shots as coronavirus infection surged due to the spread of the Omicron variant.
The booster shots will be restricted to frontline workers, after which they will be offered to people 60 years and older.
The COVID-19 booster shot is to give people another level of protection from COVID-19 if their existing protection has waned over time. The booster enhances their immune system to protect them from infection, hospitalizations and death, which is the purpose of the vaccine. The manager of the expanded program on immunization at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Kwame Amponsachan, said the booster shots would be in phases.
When we started vaccination last year, somewhere around 1st March, we had a group that we got the most vulnerable, and these are the people with underlying conditions, healthcare workers, those who are 60 years and above, frontline security persons, and then the arms of government as well as other frontline workers. So they are the ones for whom a booster dose is recommended for now by the National Immunization Technical Action Group, which is a group that is specialized in advising the Minister of Health and by extension the Ghana Health Service and the Ministry of Health and the program on immunization-related issues and technologies.
The Ghana Health Service has also reviewed the national vaccination policy to include the vaccination of pregnant women.
The same expert group recommended that we should start vaccinating pregnant women based on the fact that pregnant women are more likely to die from COVID than any other person. And also they are likely to lose their babies or even have preterm delivery. And so as part of the renewed policy, which was announced by the Minister of Health on the 19th of January, we have included pregnant women as well in this COVID-19 vaccination advice. And for now, we are giving them what we call the mRNA-based vaccines, which are Moderna and Pfizer. And so that's what we have for now.
On the country's infection rate, Dr. Kwame Amponsachan said there are 155,000 COVID-19 cases out of about 2.2 billion tests conducted so far.
It's the health segment of the news brought to you by Lufat. The 73rd New Year School and Conference has ended in Accra. The annual event organized by the University of Ghana, Legon, focused on the theme COVID-19 and socio-economic dynamics in Ghana. Recommendations at the end of the conference is aimed at building robust institutions and economy that can stand the test of time during global health pandemics.
The third annual year school and conference had a number of thematic analysis and panel sessions. Some of the thematic areas include consolidating the gains of COVID-19 in education, greening Ghana for food and jobs, global peace and security, the socio-economic impact of COVID-19 on Ghana's economy, the challenges, prospects and emerging technologies and innovations in healthcare delivery during pandemics, among others. At the closing ceremony in Accra, a senior lecturer at the Department of Adult Education and Human Resource Studies, Dr. Isahaka Fuseni, mentioned some recommendations.
To collaborate with relevant stakeholders in the health sector to provide continuous professional development in digital literacy and skills. to healthcare workers to enable them to use these emerging technologies effectively.
The Pro-Vice Chancellor, Research, Innovation and Development of the University of Ghana, Professor Phyllis Asante, officially closed the 73rd New Year School.
The annual New Year School and Conference has over the years served a useful purpose of contributing to national policy development and implementation. It is my hope that this year's communique will be equally useful to the national cause.
The Dean of the Continuing and Distance Education, Professor Olivia Frimpong Kwapong, thanked patrons and encouraged all to take e-learning very seriously because it is the new normal during and after COVID-19. For GBC News, Yaira Lawe reporting.
A new H5N1 variant of the bird flu has been detected in 3 more regions, making it 10 out of 16, the number of regions with reported cases. The Bono region is the latest region to have recorded the new H5N1 variant of the bird flu.
In the Bono region, Veterinary Services Department depopulated about 17,000 birds from the 20,000 infected in 3 farms in the region. A situation veterinary health workers described as worrying. The head of laboratory for the Greater Accra Regional Veterinary Services Department, Dr. Theophilus Odum, described the outbreak in the country as a global situation which needs urgent attention.
Currently, the avian influenza is in all over the world. We have it in Asia, Europe, America, and Africa. I mean, it is something which is in the whole world. But that shouldn't be like we should say that because in the whole world, we are not protecting ourselves. The core message is detection, rapid diagnosis, and what effective control measures putting in place by Veterinary Services Directorate.
He also outlined measures to avert further spread to the other 6 regions.
Veterinary Services Directorate have staff all over the country. If you go to every district, there is a big directorate there, and we have veterinary service staff there. And what we do is we work together with the farmers, and we put in place biosecurity measures. And we also put in place a ban on movement of poultry and poultry products. But before poultry and poultry products are moved to another place, we always advise that the poultry farmers seek a movement permit from the veterinary staff.
The strain is considered particularly dangerous because of its human fatality rate to date of over 50%. Also because of the possibility that the virus may develop the ability to pass efficiently between humans.
The Minister for Food and Agriculture, Dr. Owusu Akoto, says government has released close to 44 million as part of an emergency budget support for the implementation of an action plan to combat the highly pathogenic avian influenza bird flu. Farmers whose farms have been affected by the bird flu will also receive compensation. The minister was in Parliament to answer questions on measures put in place by the government to minimize the spread of the disease to other regions.
Implementation committee to coordinate the sensitization program and overseeing the general containment of the HPAI is set to be inaugurated tomorrow, Friday, the 27th January 2022. Mr. Speaker, let me reiterate that government has approved compensation payment to farmers affected by the HPAI as a component of the total approved budget of nearly 44 million Ghana cedis. At this stage, let me assure the House that the exercise will be carried out transparently to ensure justice for all. Finally, Mr. Speaker, to forestall the frequent recurrence of outbreaks of the HPAI and other transborder and animal diseases, government has finalized the Animal Health Bill for consideration of this Parliament. The passage of the bill will ensure effective regulation of livestock and poultry industry.
I want to ask the Minister for Food and Agriculture the measures the ministry has put in place to address the complaints of farmers about the unavailability and high prices of fertilizers, and to ensure the availability of fertilizers in the 2022 crop season.
Mr. Speaker, the lessons learned on the effect of COVID-19 pandemic on economic activities call for pragmatic and innovative solutions to sustain the gains of the PSD campaign. Even before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, government had taken many steps to ensure local production of fertilizer and the encouragement of farmers to gradually shift to organic fertilizer, which is locally available. Frantic efforts are also being made to attract a multi-billion-dollar investment in a fertilizer manufacturing plant, which will rely on the surplus gas produced through offshore oil explorations for.
And that was the health segment brought to you by Lufat, Tobingo's premium gift to Africa. We now go to the presidency, where President Akufo-Addo has held a discussion with the steering committee of the Apiate Support Fund at the Jubilee House on Thursday. The conversation centered on how to raise money to resettle and redevelop the Apiate town. President Akufo-Addo donated 10,000 cedis to the fund and said the disaster has brought to the fore the need for stringent regulations to govern mining activities in Ghana. Explosion has left 900 people displaced, with 14 dead. Some of the displaced persons are putting up with family members, while others are staying in classrooms and makeshift structures in nearby communities. A steering committee has been set up to facilitate the fundraising and its disbursement. The committee met with the President, Nana Akufo-Addo, at the Jubilee House on Thursday to interact with him on the resettlement and development of the area. The Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Mr. Samuel Jinapor, said the government has a firm hold on the situation in Apiate.
By and large, we have, to date, been able to come to some grips with the situation in Apiate. The displaced persons are being looked after. The injured are being looked after, and investigations are ongoing in earnest. President, with your direction and leadership, you caused us to establish the Apiate Support Fund to use that as a platform to raise the necessary funding for the reconstruction of the community, as well as to support the members of the community.
The chairperson of the steering committee for the Apiate Support Fund, Ms. Joyce Ai, said that redevelopment of the town must be modeled on a green city.
Mr. President, we can promise you that given your own compassion, passion, and dedication to the well-being of people in Ghana, particularly those who become vulnerable as a result of incidents that they had no control over. Your own personal involvement drives us to make sure that this project actually works.
President Akufo-Addo tasked the steering committee to raise enough to support the people of Apiate.
I'm very, very impressed with the thinking of the chair, that we should move on, not just rebuild it, but use it perhaps to create some sort of model, a village model, small town, going down the line for people to see what the future is going to look like and what the future should look like. I want to wish you the very best of luck. And yes, madam, I have my widow's mite. I have 100,000 CDs.
The five-member steering committee for the fund is chaired by Ms. Joyce Ai. Other members of Tetrete Ekuamwa Sechi II, Oman Hine of Wasa Amenfi Traditional Area, the Managing Director of Cal Bank, Mr. Philip Uredu, a senior lecturer at the University of Ghana and research fellow at the Center for Social Policy Studies, Dr. Antoinette Chibodakum, and Mr. Suleiman Akwari from the Ghana Chamber of Mine and Industry.
So the president actually donated 100,000 to the support fund instead of the 10,000 we earlier stated. Moving on to Parliament, challenges with accommodation in most universities across the country generated discussions on Thursday. The MP for New Idubiase, Mr. Abdul Salam Adams, who presented a statement, said most first-year students go through stress in finding residential accommodation on campus, a situation which impedes teaching and learning. Others suggested ways by which the problem can be solved.
January 6, 2022. On that day, I visited the campus of the University of Ghana together with a student and her father, who had traveled all the way from New Idubiase to begin their search for accommodation on campus. Mr. Speaker, all attempts at meeting the traditional hall authorities to put forward a request were unsuccessful. Mr. Speaker, it took us over 6 hours of waiting for a manager of one of the hostel facilities on campus to finally find a slot for my constituent.
The challenge we are having is that we are not being progressive enough to make sure that every year, at least the public universities put up or expand the existing accommodation for students. The universities have given that role to private individuals who put up hostels and charge students exorbitant fees.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years ago, the policy was to decouple admission from accommodation. 20 years ago. That was the policy. And as a result, private sector was supposed to play a vital role as best practices everywhere. Mr. Speaker, yes, the growth of the numbers indicates that going forward, we should be doing our best to ensure that we solve the problem. But please, let us avoid politicizing education.
Given that not long ago, I was a member of UTA, and given my relationship with the academic community, one would have thought that I wouldn't have faced a challenge getting a son and a nephew accommodation on campus. Unfortunately, even I, of the academic community, have not been able to get accommodation for constituents and even family members. Mr. Speaker, this is a testimony of the magnitude of the challenge.
There are times when you may have an issue of limited supply, or you may also have a management problem on your hands. If I listen to the comments of my colleagues, I can see there is something in between the two. That students are manually going around looking for facilities. Whereas if the system was built up in such a way that you can select online before you get there to make sure accommodation was provided, we'll eliminate some of these problems. So I work with the universities to look at the best way forward in terms of ensuring that we have a proper management system in place so that students have to go to campus on the first day of school opening to look for spaces manually. The good news is that having heard of any students who could not attend KNUST or any other university for that matter because there was no accommodation, I also understand the frustration of parents if they have to go and physically be present before they can find.
Now, in determining the appropriate roadmap to transform the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, to achieve its goals, a two-day conference has been held in Accra. The conference charged regional directors and unit heads of EOCO to demonstrate professionalism, integrity, and ethical standards in the discharge of their duties.
The effectiveness of the Economic and Organized Crime Office to prevent and detect organized crime depends to a large extent on the development of pragmatic and sustainable strategies to counter and mitigate economic and financial risks posed by corruption and organized crime. This year's annual conference, as usual, brought together regional directors and unit heads to deliberate on building effective relationships with other law enforcement agencies, financial sustainability and effectiveness, and the role of performance appraisal in organizational growth. As has been the case, IOCO outlined key performance to mitigate corruption and organized crime, which is extremely crucial. The Deputy Attorney General and Minister for Justice, Mr. Alfred Tuayebua, commended IOCO for the successes struck up when handling certain sensitive criminal issues.
You've also taken up the investigation to various landmark financial crimes. Without prejudice, capital venture, Maslog, Snits, and the ambulance saga. IOCO has carried out this mandate successfully so far under the Act regarding the facilitation of confiscation of proceeds of crime. In the midst of these challenges, the Office of the Attorney General and of Justice will push for the amendment of this Act so that you have what everybody expects to have.
The Deputy Executive Director, Nana Entry, urged the participants to work hard as they brainstorm on the way forward. The Executive Director of IOCO, COP Mamitiwa Adodankwa, said under her tenure, all requisite structures will be put in place to facilitate effective delivery of outputs.
I am determined and committed to ensure that, together with management, the human and material resources will be improved significantly in line with acceptable standards. It is important to bring to your notice that we can only achieve high performance when we consistently demonstrate professionalism.
This year's conference is on a theme, building effective relationship with stakeholders to achieve the mandate of the office.
Now, the call for recognition of persons living with disability as equal beings who can help make a change in society has been re-echoed at a workshop organized by Voice Ghana, an NGO for journalists in the Oti region.
The aim of the workshop, among other things, aimed at advising media practitioners to be mindful of the description of people living with disability in the reportage. This is because research has shown that such derogatory descriptions demoralize them and in the long run prevent many of them from bringing out their innate talents for national development. Head of Department of Social Welfare, University of Ghana, Dr. Augustina Nami, cautioned the general public to stop discrimination against people living with disability.
Let's see the person in the person with a disability rather than the limitations or the disability of the person with a disability, and portray the capabilities of individuals with disabilities. Let's tell their success stories. There are so many things that we can say about persons with disabilities. We don't see those stories. They can work, those who are working, some of them are very successful. You know, let's focus on all of these.
One of the participants spoke to GBC News on how beneficial the workshop had been for him.
I've learned that some of our captions, in a way, is derogatory and makes them feel inferior or put them in a corner which it is not supposed to be so.
The Tema Traditional Council has officially announced the demise of the Tema Manche Ni Ajikraku to the government. Receiving the delegation at the Jubilee House, President Akufo-Addo urged the Traditional Council not to only organize a befitting farewell for the late chief, but also ensure a peaceful selection of his successor. Ni Ajikraku passed on in February 2020.
The Tema Manche Ni Ajikraku II died on February 2020. However, the Traditional Council postponed the announcement and the organization of his burial and final funeral rites until further notice in line with tradition. On Thursday, the Tema Traditional Council called on the President Nana Akufo-Addo at the Jubilee House to officially inform him of the demise of the Tema Manche. Ni Ajeti Agbo II, spoke on behalf of the Traditional Council.
We are here today to, with deep sorrow and regret and pain, announce to you the demise of our paramount chief, Ni Ajeti Agbo II. Ni Ajeti Agbo was installed in 1992 December. Since September 2016, he has been battling with illness. In 2020, February 22nd, just 3 days into his 70th birthday, Najee Krako kicked the bucket. He should have been here earlier on and made his announcement, but we had to put a few funeral rites in place before it became official. Meanwhile, it remained an open secret.
The President appealed to the Traditional Council to ensure that the burial, funeral and all processes leading to the selection of a successor is peaceful.
Let us pray that you, the elders in Tema, will make sure not only does he get a befitting funeral and exit, but that the procedures for finding his successor will be ones that will be without acrimony, without dissent, without histrionics, without problems, and that it will be a smooth and efficient transfer to his successor. That is the best tribute that can be paid to his memory.
President Akufo-Addo said government will support the entire process of the final farewell of the late Ni Ajeti Krako II.
3 students of Ejisu Senior High Technical School have been stabbed in 3 separate incidents between Monday and Tuesday. On Monday, an 18-year-old Form 2 student was stabbed close to his spine with a pair of scissors when he resisted attempts by 4 of his colleagues to snatch his phone. One of them, who police say admitted to the crime, is in police custody. On Tuesday evening, some youth from the Jiso Township attacked and stabbed another student of the school in an alleged fight over girls. That same evening, another student of the school was stabbed in the head by students in a fight on campus. Police reports indicate that 3 people have been arrested in connection with all the cases as investigations continue. Meanwhile, the Jiso Municipal Security Council visited the school on Thursday.
Watching news live on GBC News and on GTV. We also stream live on Facebook and on YouTube.
Good evening and welcome. The segment is brought to you by MTN and Whirlpool. I am Dorothy Ajimai. The Finance Minister, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta, has justified the introduction of the e-levy in the 2022 budget. Describing the e-levy as a burden-sharing tax, Mr. Ofori-Atta said the devastating effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on the economy informed the decision to propose the e-levy, where citizens can also contribute to the national kitty to transform the economy. He was speaking at the closing ceremony of the 73rd Annual New Year School held at the University of Ghana, Legon.
To speak with the telecom companies and say, let's begin to look at your profits and what you are charging, and therefore negotiate a way in which we can reduce what you are charging so that then the total impact is reduced for the Ghanaian. Good minds, we were able to come down by 0.25%, which means the impact will go down for the average Ghanaian, but we'll still be able to retain the revenues needed for these three critical areas of debt sustainability, of infrastructure build-up, and ensuring that our Youth Start youth programs, entrepreneurships becomes standard in our sort of socio-economic development, etc. And that really, in the sense, is, are we Ghanaians ready to acknowledge that we've gotten to a point in which we need to all contribute to this, what we'll call burden sharing, just as the telcos were able to cut down, just as the bankers were able to bring 5 billion CDs to the table. And then what do you and I do to ensure that we pay our way for the development of the economy? This could be the most effective tool to ensure that all of us are included in the tax net and that we consistently grow with the growth of an e-commerce economy.
Government's resolve to widen the tax net through the introduction of the electronic levy has been fraught with some resistance in Parliament and also misconceptions among the general public. On GTV Breakfast, the Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. John Kumar, sought to explain the need for government to raise revenue to build the economy. He agreed that more education and stakeholder engagement are needed.
Mobile money has made strides in increasing access to digital financial services in Ghana and bridging the financial inclusion gap. According to a report by the UNCDF, by November 2021, Ghana had 47.3 million registered users of mobile money, 18.4 active users, and a cash value of over 80 billion Ghana cedis. In the last 2 years, mobile transactions alone grew from 70 billion cedis to 900 billion cedis.
Or the too sensitive group to the Momo. So up to 100 Ghana cedis, you are not going to pay. And then when you are moving Momo from your wallet to your bank account on your same phone, government is not going to tax you. We extended that 100 Ghana cedis to cover all 100% Momo users so that we can cover the poor or the much sensitive group to this tax. So they are not going to be affected.
He said in order to reduce the impact of the financial burden, the telcos have agreed to reduce their charges by 25%. He explains further how the electronic levy will work.
Remittances are exempted. Okay. So remittances that come in outside Ghana are not charged on the e-levy. And when she's withdrawing from her phone, withdrawals are not covered.
We move to the Ashanti region where a new variety of tomato known as snake tomato, entirely different in nature from the well-known tomato varieties, could soon be on the Ghanaian market. The crop, if eventually approved by the National Varietal Release and Registration Committee, could rival the traditional tomato breeds already on the local market. According to our Ashanti regional correspondent, Nicholas Oseiwusu, initial research has shown that apart from the known vitamin A nutrients present in any other tomato variety, the snake tomato is also endowed with vitamin C and several other nutritional qualities and could also be eaten in its green state, as is the case with cucumber.
A research scientist with the Crops Research Institute of the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research, Dr. Michael Kwabnose, has been researching into the alien crop variety for about a year now. The creeping plant, which is yet to be assigned a generally acceptable local name, is commonly found in Nigeria. The study by the Crop Research Institute scientists is to, among other objectives, confirm the many initially found nutritional and medicinal values and the suitable climatic and agronomic conditions required for its cultivation in Ghana. The research will also involve sensory activities encompassing the vegetable's usefulness for soup and stew preparation. During a visit to the research field at the Kwadaso Agric Research Station near Kumasi, the breeder, Dr. Michael Kwabnose, demonstrated that the crop could as well be eaten in its green or unripe state.
When it ripes, it's like tomatoes. So they need to prepare something out of it and see.
The study into this crop has almost gone through a full planting cycle, from planting to ripening. Unlike the commonly known tomatoes that change in color from green to red, the snake tomato turns yellowish with relatively bigger seeds when ripe. It has no official name yet, but is unofficially referred to as snake tomato because of its elongated and curvaceous nature, making it look physically like a snake. However, a more acceptable name will be adopted later for local acceptance, since the interim identity evokes fear among especially women. Dr. Kwabnose told GBC News that initial findings from the studies suggest that the snake tomato requires a lot of sunshine, takes about 16 weeks to mature, and could replace the known tomato varieties available on the Ghanaian market, owing to the many different nutritional and medicinal qualities it possesses.
You hardly see pests on the fruit except when it's rotten. And then the fruit size is large enough, elongated, contains a lot of vitamins, talk of vitamin C, A. It's very good for the heart, promotes a lot of, it's able to also protect the bone, has a lot of good health information or importance.
Dr. Kwabnose noted that for now, the major challenge undermining the research into the snake tomato is funding.
Back here in Accra, the Ghana Mine Workers Union has commended the government and other state agencies for their prompt response to help rebuild the community of Apiate in the western region after the explosion. According to a statement signed by the General Secretary of the union, Abdul Mumin Gabna, some safety awareness could have significantly saved the situation by reducing the overall impact of the disaster. The statement says the union is hopeful that thorough investigations would be conducted by an independent body to establish the cause of the accident and recommend appropriate measures to forestall a recurrence and transgressors punished to serve as a deterrent to others. The union commiserated with the entire Piatti community, members of the union who were affected and bereaved families. Meanwhile, the union has called on all well-meaning Ghanaians and corporate bodies to assist the government to put smiles on the faces of the people of Apiate within the shortest time possible. That's it for the business segment, proudly brought to you by MTN and Whirlpool.
Hello, good evening. This is the Energy News segment. My name is Mabel Anna. An Accra High Court has ordered the operator of Ghana's Sankofa oil field, Eni Ghana, and its partner, Vitol Upstream Ghana, to pay 30% of revenue from the sale of their crude oil to the court registrar. The payment, which is estimated at $40 million monthly, starts from June 25, 2021, the date of the original ruling, and continues every month thereafter until the substantive matter is determined. On Monday, January 24, 2022, order was made in court, presided over by Justice Maria Masamo, following an application by Springfield Exploration and Production, operators of the West Cape 3-point WCTP Block 2, for the court's clear interpretation of its earlier ruling. Upon receipt of the payment, the registrar will then pay the same into an escrow account and furnish the court and the parties with records of payment. Springfield's application was precipitated by Eni and Vitol's failure to comply with the court's ruling of June 25, 2021. On June 25, 2021, the court ruled in favor of Springfield Exploration and Production's application to freeze revenues received by Eni and Vitol from the sale of crude oil from the Sankofa oil field, pending determination of a substantive case filed in July 2020. The companies have been in dispute since an April 2020 directive was issued by the Ministry of Energy to unitize the Afina and Sankofa fields to ensure optimal recovery of the resources in the common reservoir in the interest of all the parties involved, including the state. Tal Oil expects its 2021 free cash flow to come in higher than previously forecast at $250 million and expects the 2022 cash flow to come in at $100 million at an oil price of $75 a barrel.
Tullow Oil, with a market capitalization of around $1 billion, is focusing on reducing its $2.1 billion debt pile and has hedged 50 to 75% of its output of around 60,000 barrels of oil equivalent per day between $51 and $78 a barrel to 2024. The company believes the hedging cost is between $1.6 and $2 per barrel. Benchmark crude oil futures are trading near $90 a barrel, with much of last year's third quarter above $80. Tullow had said in November it saw its 2021 free cash flow at $100 million. Lower free cash flow in 2022 would include a $75 million payment from divesting its Uganda assets, but also hike the commissioning spending, an investment of $350 million, most of which will go into its flagship fields offshore Ghana. The company is seeking new investors for its yet-to-be-developed project in Guyana and Kenya, having submitted a revamped $3.4 billion development plan for some of its onshore Kenyan oil fields last month. Chief Executive of Tullow Oil, Mr. Rahul Deer, said there is no guidance yet on the timing or size of partial divestments from those.
This brings us to the end of the Energy News segment. My name is Mabel Annan. There's more news to come. Please stay tuned.